Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tech Tutorial Tuesday. Today, I'll be talking about passwords, what makes them secure, and what you can do to make sure that you have a strong password. There are a few things that you can do to make sure that you have a strong password. The first is to make sure that your password is long. Generally, 8 to 16 characters is what's accepted these days, but the longer, the better. Obviously, an 8-character password is going to be harder to crack than a 4-character password, and even more so if you move on to 12 characters or 16 characters. You also want to make sure that you're using a mix of letters, numbers, capitals, lowercase, and special symbols in your password. Again, the more unique and the more diverse your password is, the harder it's going to be for someone to crack. You also want to avoid dictionary words, so things like boy or girl or tree. Common words in the English language are also going to be easier to crack than random strings of letters or numbers or characters. And lastly, you want to avoid personal information. If you have your dog's name all over social media, it's going to be pretty easy for someone to guess what your dog's name is if that's what you're using as a password. So again, the 4 main things to remember are length of password, diverse variety of characters, no dictionary words, and no personal information in the password. So let's jump over to this list of random passwords I've created here, and let's take a look at how long it would take to crack these by using a brute force attack. So what a brute force attack is basically someone gaining access of your computer and then trying every single combination of letters and numbers and characters in existence until they're able to crack your password. And as you'll see, with some of these passwords, it doesn't take very long at all. And as we move through the list and the password gets complex, you'll see that the time required to crack it jumps significantly. And again, as you'll see as we move through this list, it'll become pretty clear why it makes sense to change your password every month or every 90 days or so. So let's start with the first password here, my name in all lowercase letters. If we put it into security.org's password checker, it says that this password, my 4-character name, all lowercase letters, would be cracked instantly. So let's put that down here so we could compare. Let's see if anything changes just by changing the D to capital. So I'll copy that over. And okay, it went up to 100 microseconds, which of course isn't great, but we can see that it's already starting to become a little bit more difficult for a computer to breach this password. So 100 milliseconds. Still not satisfactory, but again, longer than just lowercase demo. Okay, on this line I've changed the I to an exclamation point and the A to an @ symbol. And by doing that, it jumps to 500 microseconds. So about 5 times longer than the first one, but still a terrible password. By adding today's date to the end of that, that jumps all the way up to 3 weeks. And the reason why that jumped all the way to 3 weeks is the length. Obviously 43021 isn't super complex. It wouldn't be very hard for a computer to crack that on its own, but adding it to the back of D exclamation point M @ makes it long enough that it would take your average computer about 3 weeks to crack this password. And then again, by adding one more character, a $ to the end of that jumps all the way to 5 years. So out of the list of passwords using just my name, obviously this one is the strongest. With this password, I could be sure and secure that there isn't going to be a brute force attack capable of cracking this password. And then just for fun, I created a totally random one with nothing to do with my name. It's a variation of Palm Springs and then the year. And then by entering this, before I put it in, you can all guess, it's gonna take longer than 5 years for a brute force attack to breach it. But how much longer? So again, this is significantly longer than these other passwords. It has a mix of letters, numbers, special characters. So let's go ahead and put that in and see what we get. Okay, 12,000 years. So again, more than double how long it would take a brute force attack to breach this password. And what's important to remember here, you're probably thinking, okay, if I make my password Palm Springs 21 with this mix of letters, characters, and numbers, I'll never have to change my password again because 12,000 years is substantial. But what you have to remember here is this is only for brute force attacks, right? There's all other kinds of ways that hackers use to gain access to information, to passwords, to login credentials. This is strictly an example of one type of attack, one type of breach that's out there. And of course, if you're writing your passwords down or if you're putting them in emails or sharing them over the phone, it doesn't matter how many special characters or how many letters and numbers. Those are going to be in this category here as instant breaches or instant hacks. So if you spend time creating a strong password with numbers and characters, please remember not to put it on a piece of paper by your computer or to call your friends or coworkers with it. That alone basically renders the password useless. So the takeaway here should be, even if you're using your name, which you shouldn't be, but if you're using your name or a child's name, try to make it more difficult to crack. Try to use special characters in there instead of letters. Try to put numbers at the end, preferably not birth dates, but some meaningful string of numbers that doesn't directly correlate with whatever the password is. So that's just a quick overview of passwords and what makes them strong and what you can do to make them more secure. And that wraps up this week's video. I hope this makes you confident that the password you're using now is secure, and if not, hopefully it gives you some ideas of what you can do to make your password stronger. I'll see you all next week with another episode of Tech Tutorial Tuesday.